Bethlehem. Bethlehem. I ask you to find out some things about Bethlehem, to do some study on Bethlehem. Interesting. There are Bethlehems all over America. Bethlehem steel, everybody knows about Bethlehem steel. Bethlehem. There's two Bethlehems in Israel, as a matter of fact. Only one of which we're really concerned about, and that is the one in the southern part. Bethlehem. When we went to Israel in 1981, I was not prepared for the Jewishness of Israel. I kind of had the idea in mind that it's a bunch of Christians, you know. They're all Jews and Arabs. And our guide, who was totally Jewish, Z-T-Z-I, Gafni, G-A-F-N-I, was totally Jewish, worked for the state of Israel as a guide, and had to toe the line on certain things that he could say and could not say and could do and could not do. And one of the things that he had to stay away from was the Christianity parts of Bethlehem and the New Testament. He was dealing with Bethlehem from an Old Testament standpoint. Around the table at Tel Aviv at night, he would talk to us believer to believer, because he said, I am a believer in Yeshua, but I can't say it publicly or I'll lose my job. And I understand that. Israel is not Christian. You have to understand. There are Christian Jews, there are completed Jews, but Israel itself is not a Christian nation. It is a Jewish nation, and they are firmly in charge. They are in control of that area, and what they're not in charge of, the Arabs are. Oh yeah, there are very few Orthodox religious Jews. Benjamin Netanyahu is a secular Jew. If he goes to the wall or to the Temple Mount, he will put on the skull cap. But other than that, they're not secular. They're not sacred. They're all secular.
But they believe in
Old Testament. That's the thing. So when you talk about Bethlehem, you are ready to talk about the birth of Jesus. But he was not ready to talk about the birth of Jesus. He was ready to deal with it from an Old Testament standpoint. Bethlehem. It's about the same way that we don't allow it over here. It's one of those things that wink, wink, nod, nod. It depends on who it is. Depends on who the authority figure is. But you're right. You're not supposed to do it.
But they have a Christian section.
They have a Christian what?
They have a lot of Christians that live in.
Of course they do, but they're in the minority. They're very few and far between. We'll talk about that as we come on down here. Look at the map of Bethlehem. There is a line in the film, It's a Wonderful Life. We've all seen it 137 million times over Christmas, right? Remember the scene where they're building this housing project, this subdivision. George Bailey's loaning money out, and they're building these houses. And every house they got built, they had a housewarming gift. They came and brought a housewarming gift to the family. And one of the gifts that they gave was a loaf of bread. A big, huge loaf of what we would call Italian bread. Italian bread, unsliced, bread. And George's wife, I've forgotten the Donna Reed character, she said, may you always have bread. It's bread for the fact that you may always have bread. And then, of course, they said wine as well. The idea is the Jewish toast is the word l'chaim. If you go to a Jewish wedding or any sort of thing where they have the Jewish speeches being made, they will generally say l'chaim, l'chaim. And that is the word for bread. May you always have bread. Beit, B-E-I-T, beit is the word for house. Beit l'chaim, or Bethlehem is the city of bread, the house of bread. It's a compound word, Hebrew words, Beit L'chaim, which means the city of may you always have bread. So Bethlehem is a compound word, which means the city or the house of bread. It is located, if you'll look, if you'll see it. Now, have you found it yet? Can you see me yet? Can you hear me yet? There's in the West Bank. Now, somebody tell me what the West Bank is all about. The West Bank. That's the West Bank right there. What is the West Bank? West Bank of what?
That's where the land that Israel won
Not the land that won. The West Bank. The West Bank of the Jordan River. The Jordan River runs right up that earthquake rift, right straight up that rift right there. It's a wandering river about like the Mississippi River. In that period right there, it runs over 200 miles as the water flows and everything. But in that area right there, the west side of that is the side that is claimed by the Arabs. You'll notice where Bethlehem is located. See it? It's in that dark brown area. It is in what is known as the West Bank area. Right there is Beit L'chaim. Jerusalem is kind of dodged around. Jerusalem is a sticky wicket. You ever played croquet? You know what a sticky wicket is? What is a sticky wicket? In croquet, you have those wire wickets and you knock the balls through. If you've got a sticky wicket, what's your problem? It won't go through. I can't get it through that one. That's a sticky wicket. I just can't get the ball to go through that wicket. Jerusalem has always been a sticky wicket as far as world events are concerned. Whoever can solve the problem of East Jerusalem and Temple Mount, they will make him the Antichrist right on the verge, because that is a true sticky wicket. But the West Bank is this area right here. Now notice, if you will please, if that is the area that is claimed by the Arabs, notice what's left. Can you see that right there? That's just about 15 miles wide. If the Arabs claim all of this right in here, and that right there is Yasser Arafat's hometown, that's his headquarters, Nablus it was. If they put rockets along that line, well, they're 15 miles away. Mm-hmm. Yeah, you're keeping up with all that, aren't you? That's right. That's right. Yes, they did. The West Bank is one of those contested areas. Anything they do in that, the Arabs claim we got it, and the Jews say we got it, and nobody knows who got it. It's one of those areas that it's a sticky wicket. Nobody knows the answer to all of that. What I'm talking about here for the time being, though, is Bethlehem is located right in that area. There are no Jews that live in Bethlehem. There are no Christians that live in Bethlehem. Only Arabs live in Bethlehem. It's one of those cities that's called the West Bank City, one of the West Bank cities. Now, it goes all the way back to the Old Testament. You have to understand, Bethlehem goes all the way back to the book of Genesis. And we're just going to bring it up to speed here. By the way, as I told you a while ago, right there is Nablus. That is the capital city of PLO, of Yasser Arafat's claim. You'll notice where Jericho is located, right there in the West Bank. Hebron, in the West Bank. All of these cities right in here, in the West Bank. Jerusalem is divided. The Bible says, woe unto the person that divides my city. They ran a fence right down through the middle of Jerusalem. No wonder there's such a mess. Because the Jews have got it. It's the only thing. As long as the Jews have 1 square inch of property, that's too much. If I don't like Joyce that much, if my hatred of her, not just dislike, but hatred of Joyce is that intense, that I would not give an inch if she owned 1 square inch of property, That is hatred. Now, that is really hatred there.
It's actually deeper than that. It's a spiritual.
Well, yeah, I realize that, but let's stay on point here. It is a hatred deal that goes between the two. We know it's the devil. We got that, okay? But let's stay with Bethlehem here. That's all I want you to do tonight, is stay on Bethlehem. It is one of those cities that is in the West Bank. When we went there, several of you, when you all sent us over there, me and Nita, several of you, not any of you, I don't guess, but several of you wanted me to bring you back diamonds and stuff, because there's all kinds of diamonds over there. And I did. I brought back a little pocket envelope, a little thing that fit in your pocket with diamonds in it. Bought them all in Bethlehem. We went into a place there in Bethlehem. Yeah, they're real. It was an amazing thing. We're talking 1981. 1981. Things have changed. This is the point. In 1981, this is where what we ran into. Did you get to go to Bethlehem? Did you get to go to Hebron? You did not get to go to Hebron. Did you get to go to Jericho? See there? Things have changed. I went to all those places. Now then, you can't do that because people are flexing their muscles. But Bethlehem is one of those places. Now, I wanted to find out about Bethlehem, and I ask you to do that. Let's deal with Bethlehem. 49 times in 47 verses in both the Old and the New Testaments, the word Beit Lahaim, Bethlehem, occurs. Now, that's not a good map right there. I'm sorry about that. But you can kind of see it's about 5 miles southwest of Jerusalem. No Jews live there now. And there were no Jews living there in 1981. It's one of those West Bank cities, about 5 miles southwest of Jerusalem. Now, it goes all the way back to Rachel's death. Let's talk about Rachel just a minute. We're discussing who and what Bethlehem is all about. Abraham was told to come out of his father's house and go to a land that I, God, will show you, and I want you to establish the land. And he did that. He established the land of people. The people of Abram the Hebrew became Abraham the Hebrew. Heber, H-E-B-E-R, means stranger or pilgrim or sojourner. And his name was changed from Abram the Hebrew, Abram the stranger, to Abraham the Hebrew. And the Hebrew people are the descendants of Abraham through one of his two sons. Abraham had two sons, Isaac and Ishmael. The Jewish people and the Bible and the Christians claim that Isaac is the chosen one according to the Bible. The Arab people claim that Ishmael was the chosen one. It was Ishmael that Abraham offered as a sacrifice. It was Ishmael that received all the blessings. It was Ishmael. The Bible says that it was Isaac. The Quran talks about other things like that. So it starts all the way back there. It goes all the way back that far, even way yonder back in those days. Isaac. Isaac had two sons. What were their names? Jacob and Esau. What was unusual about them? They were twins. It wasn't unusual. It's just that they were so different. Isaac was a good old, Esau was a good old boy. He wore his cap around backwards, a redneck, and he wore cut-off sleeves on his shirts and stuff, and brogan boots and stuff. He's just a typical redneck guy, a good old boy. You'd love to have him around. He's the talk of the town. Everybody wanted to be around Esau. Jacob, not so much. Jacob was an unusual kind of feller. Jacob's name means deceiver, or some have suggested con artist. Jacob is a word which would indicate not so pretty good to be around. Esau, you'd trust him with your garbage can, you'd trust him with your dog, you'd trust him with everything. Esau was just a good old boy. Went out and shot his food, and didn't shoot it. Whatever they did back in those days, killed what he wanted, and he could make up a what do you call it, a shepherd's stew. He'd make up a stew that'd knock your socks off. Everybody wanted to be around Esau. Jacob wanted that birthright because Esau was the older of the two, and the birthright goes to the older of the two, right? Everybody knows that. Except Jacob decided he wanted to take it away from Esau, and he tricked him into believing that he could do that, and he tricked him away from it. And Esau sold his birthright for a bowl of soup. Now we know that narrative. We've dealt with that. You say God would have done it anyhow. Yeah, I got it. Sometimes we don't have to do a lot of scheming. Sometimes we don't have to help God. We feel like we do, but sometimes He's going to take care of it regardless of where we're involved with it or not. But Jacob tricked him, and he became the heir apparent even though he was not the older of the two. Jacob married. He went out and worked 7 years for the wife that he loved, he wanted. And when he uncovered her after the wedding night, what did he find? Got the wrong one. Got the bleary-eyed one. Somebody say that's the cross-eyed one. Bad news. Now you say, why would he not know? You mean he didn't know who he was marrying until guys, you've got to watch. You've got to see a Jewish wedding. You've got to see a good portrayal of a Jewish wedding sometime. She's covered up. He didn't know who she was until the next morning. And he saw Leah over there on her side of the bed. What in the world are you doing in here? He worked 7 years and got the wrong woman. My good friend Bob Bevington, pastor of this church, had been married to Mary Lou for 7 years. And he preached in this church, the pulpit of this church, 7 years with the wrong woman. Mary Lou was fit to be tied. He's preaching on Jacob and Esau. Leah is the one that became the wife, but Rachel was the favored one. If you'll look at Rachel all the way through, you'll find that she's the one always giving him trouble. She's always the one that's causing all the problems. Rachel. There were 2 bond slaves involved with that as well. And so Jacob and his 2 wives and 2 bond slaves had 12 sons and at least 1 daughter. Now you know the sons, right? They are known as what? The children of Israel. Because Jacob's name was changed from con artist to prince with God, Israel. Jacob's name was changed from Jacob to Israel. And so the children of Jacob became the children of Israel, and that's where that expression comes from. See, nothing in this book right here happens by mistake. It is all a systematic theology. One of the hardest courses I ever took in seminary was systematic theology. This is all one book. It's got all kinds of different writers, only one author, but it's all got one storyline all the way through. And Jacob and his systematic theology is just part of it. He was the one that was married to Leah. They had children. His name was changed to Israel. They married to Rachel, and then there were the two female bond slaves that were there, and they had all of these children. The last 2 are Joseph and Benjamin. Who is their mother? Rachel. The favored wife has the favored sons, and Joseph and Benjamin. On the way, going south, on the way, going down toward the southern part of Israel, down to Beersheba, Rachel goes into labor and dies in childbirth. She dies on the road to Bethlehem. She dies right there as they have come into Bethlehem. This is the first time we find Bethlehem in the Bible. It simply means house of bread, but this is the first illustration of it. Now, you say, is that the real place? That had to be 4,000 years ago. Is that still there? Now just think for just a moment. Jewish people would feel very close to the place where Rachel died. Now listen very closely, because this is not blasphemy what I'm about to say. Jewish people would feel closer to that than they would the place where Jesus died. Now think about that. Because what is her position? Rachel's position is the mother of those two children, and the wife of the patriarch of Israel, Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob. Jacob is the patriarch, the leader. It's at the pyramid, and he's at the top, and Rachel is his favored wife. And so that burial site is probably an authentic site on the road going in toward Bethlehem. It has been marked down through the years. It's been built and rebuilt and built and rebuilt. And if you'll notice that little dome on top, what is that little dome? Anybody remember what that little round place is? That's an Arab addition. That is an Arab addition to it. That's a prayer chamber. Those little round domes are prayer chambers of the Arabs. They get inside and they face the niche. They find the niche that faces toward Mecca. And this is an addition. The first part of that is that little square, little cubicle building right there. That's probably a pretty an authentic site where Rachel died and they just buried her. Why didn't they just take her back to the... Tell me how they bury. You mean just... That sounds kind of cold, doesn't it? Well, she's dead. Bury her and let's go. Tell me what's going through his mind. What's happening here? How did they bury? They did die. Are we on? What happened when somebody died in Israel? They buried them right there. If somebody dies in war, they bury them right there. And that's the same way with the Muslims as well. So probably, I mean, he couldn't do anything about it. She died in childbirth. The child lived. Bonami or Benjamin lived, and so they buried her right there, marked it as best they could, and went on. And later on, this mark on the way toward Bethlehem. That's the first indication of Bethlehem. Here it is. Rachel died and was buried in the way to Ephrath, which is Bethlehem. That was the former name, Ephrath. There is another expression that was used there, but thou, Bethlehem, Ephratah. But thou, Bethlehem, the home of the Ephratites, Micah 5:2. We won't get there tonight, it looks like, but Rachel died, was buried in the way to Ephrath, which is the former name of a city called Beit Lachaim, the house of bread. This is also, let's back up, in Genesis, Jacob said, as for me, when I came to Padan Aram, Rachel would be her name, died by me in the land of Canaan. In the land of Canaan, remember? Canaan. Joshua came in and they divided up the land, and of course later on, Canaan. And yet there was but a little way to come to Ephrath, which is the former name for Bethlehem. So I buried her there in the way of Ephrath. That same thing is Beit Lahaim. Two expressions, two words right there. First two expressions in the Bible for Bethlehem in the Old Testament have nothing to do with Jesus Christ. Well, as a matter of fact, they do. Because it's the family. It's the family. Any thoughts or comments about this? I'm glad I was able to explain that so completely that nobody's got any questions. Are you kidding me? Confusing with what? Well, it's Jacob, and Rachel is the mother. She is the matriarch of the family. And she's very prominent. She's very much prominent. The first two references to Bethlehem, okay? This is an old picture, about 1900. It has been revived, made a little bit better. That's basically what it looked like when we saw it there. Okay. When Joshua came in, later on, that was Genesis. That's Genesis. When Joshua came in, he was told to divide the land up and conquer the land. They came across the Jordan River, fought the Battle of Jericho. Walls fell down. Joshua takes care of that. They divided the land up, and here's just a little statement. You'll just find this little verse of Scripture. Katah, Nahala, Shimron, Adalah, and Bethlehem. 5 of 12 cities with their villages. It's just an explanation of one of the towns. Bethlehem is a scruffy little town that happened to be over there in the area near what later on became Jerusalem, and Joshua divided it up. There's the way that divided it up. Now look, if you will, please. Notice that they're all the 12 names of the boys. Well, those 2, of course, are Joseph's kids. But right in here, all of these 12 names, 12 tribes of Israel. Bethlehem is right in this area right here. That's where Jerusalem is located too. Right, well, actually, right up in this area right here. So, in the area of the tribe of Judah is where Bethlehem is located. Divided up by the city, divided up by Joshua. The next expression that we find. Now, I'm not going to mention all of these, but there are several people that came from the judges. You know a couple of judges by name, do you? Biblical judges? Samson, Jephthah, Othniel. Who? Deborah and Barak, yeah. Judges. Intermediate leaders. Kings hadn't come in yet. Prophets are religious things. The civil authorities are appointed regional elected mayors, governors out there taking care of this. And it says that some of them came from Bethlehem. There's one called Ibzan. He lived in Bethlehem. His claim to fame is he was a judge. Nobody knows what he did or where he went or what he did, but he was from Bethlehem. And it says in that passage right there, Judges chapter 17 right here, an event when there was no king in Israel, quote unquote, and every man did that which was right in his own eyes. These judges, Samson's and Gideon, that's probably the most famous, those two, Gideon and other judges, they took over the land regionally. They didn't take over the whole land. They just here. Samson was not the judge over all the people. Neither was Gideon or anybody else. But they took over the land because there was no king yet, and Samuel, the prophet, was not the one to lead them at that particular time. So one of them, a guy named Ibzan, happened to be from the little scruffy little town of Bethlehem. Now the book of Ruth is very, very important in the Old Testament, and it deals with Bethlehem quite a lot. We need to deal with the book of Ruth from time to time, and we will, because the narrative that we talk about in Ruth establishes Bethlehem as the city of David. Mm-hmm.
Coming out of the Garden of Eden, after the age and the dispensation, before the flood, there was no rules or regulations. Every man lived by his conscience. Is this still part under the...
There were rules, but every man did what was right in his own eye. He became a ruler to himself. There wasn't a central leader, a strong central leader. You think they do that now? More than likely. Judges chapter Ruth chapter 1 talks about this people. It came to pass in the days when the judges ruled. See, when the judges were in charge. No king. There was no king in Israel. Saul and David and Solomon are way down the pike. When the judges ruled, there was a famine in the land. Tell me about a famine. What is a famine? How come?
They probably overproduced it. Or it was God created.
A famine is basically a punishment from God most of the time. It's not just an absence of rain. A famine is when actually the dirt itself just dries up. Even if it were to rain, it would take years to reestablish a growing season. There was a famine in the land. What land? Bethlehem. And a certain man of Bethlehem/Judah. Now, let's see here. Let me go right here. Bethlehem/Judah, Newport, Tennessee. Bethlehem, Judah. Before, Bethlehem was called Bethlehem Ephratah. Now it's called Bethlehem, Judah. A certain man of Bethlehem, Judah. No bread. What's the word Bethlehem mean again? No bread in the house of bread? Is this a play on words? The Bible's got a sense of humor, guys. You don't think God's got a sense of humor? Look at a giraffe. There's no bread in the house of bread. It's not going to grow. Now, what's this? Here's a man who lived in Bethlehem, Bethlehem, Judah. He went to live in the country of Moab. For heaven's sakes, where in the world is Moab? Anybody know anything about Moab? Across the river and through the woods to Grandmama's house we go. Moab, my goodness, the product of a drunken man and his daughters. Lot and his two daughters have incestuous relationship, and the boys that are born are Moab and Ammon. My goodness, they went over to the country of Moab. He left the place of Judah, left the place of God, left the house of bread to go to the country of Moab, he and his wife and his two sons. And I got those verses down on the bottom down there. All of those is where the word Bethlehem appears. Now you know the narrative in the book of Judges, of Ruth, how that they went and God brought them back, and in the process of coming back, he runs into this rich man named Boaz, and Ruth becomes his bride, and because this Moabite woman, not a Christian, not a Jew, Moabite, pagan, worshipped idol gods, pagan, wicked person, and yet God got a hold of her, brought her into the family of God, and she became an ancestress, great-grandmother of whom? Well, David, and then on down the line. Isn't that neat the way God works these things out? And it happened in Bethlehem, or Bethlehem, those words that we're looking at. Other things that we're talking about, the books of Samuel, Kings, and Chronicles, those are historical books. They talk about this one came in from Bethlehem, that one went to Bethlehem. It's just in passing. Those are passages that we don't need to deal with. It just talks about Bethlehem. When Ezra went over to build the temple, Ezra built the temple, and Nehemiah built the wall around the temple. And it says in Ezra 2:21, the children of Bethlehem volunteered, 123 of them volunteered to help build the temple. They jumped up and they were volunteers. Jeremiah speaks about the people of Bethlehem. Micah, a prophet, has an astounding prophecy about Bethlehem. But thou, Bethlehem Ephratah, again he's using that old expression, though you be among the thousands, little among the thousands of Judah, yet out of thee shall he come forth unto me, God says, that is to be the ruler in Israel, whose goings forth have been from of old, from everlasting. Talking to a little scruffy little town named Bethlehem, and goes back to that former title, Ephratah, now known as Bethlehem, Judah. Now we know that in the process of time, again, the systematic theology of the Bible, through the process of time, David constructed himself, Bethlehem became the city of David. Later on, there's going to be a census declared by 8-ball, I call him, Octavius. Octavius means 8. He's as flaky as an 8-ball. Later on, he took the name of Caesar Augustus. Caesar Augustus. They named a month after him. Reckon what it was. There you go. There came out a decree from Caesar Augustus that all the world should be taxed, and everybody went to the city of the birth of the head of the family to be enrolled. And Joseph, being of the house and the lineage of David, went back to Bethlehem. Again, Bethlehem coming right on up. Now we're fixing to get into Jesus Christ, aren't we? We're fixing to get into and I got 10 minutes, we're fixing to get into it here. All of this has been up in the Old Testament. And when I talked about the fact that our guide was Jewish, he carried a Schofield Bible, and he talked about Bethlehem. And I wanted to talk about the birth of Jesus, and he wanted to talk about sheep and shepherds and Rachel, because it was important to him. Rachel was important to him being Jewish. We met around the table at Tel Aviv, and I said, Z, you have been mentioning little words and phrases. I've been catching up on some of the things you've been saying. I think are you a believer in Yeshua? He said, yes, I am, but I can't admit it out or I'll lose my job. He was a believer. He was a Christian, but he couldn't go any further than that. But he's dealing now with this Old Testament, but thou Bethlehem Ephratah. Now we come to the Gospels, okay? And this is where the happy hunting ground of things about Bethlehem is going to be. Jesus was born in Bethlehem of Judea. Now we know where he was. In the days of Herod the king came the Persian magi, the wise men, magicians. We get our word magicians from that word, M-A-G-I, magi. Persian wise men from the east to Jerusalem. And they said unto him, where is this king to be born? In Bethlehem. I remember Lewis Maynard. Lewis Maynard was Jimmy McNabb was Herod. He was one of my villains in the Easter programs. And I remember Jimmy he was up there. Steve Blanchett made a good villain too. Several others made good villains in this thing. And the wise men came to see, where is he that's born King of the Jews? We've seen his star, and we've come to worship him. Oh, I'm the King of the Jews. You come to worship me? No, the one that's the star. Where is that star? We want that star seems to be leading us. What's down there? And ain't nothing down there but Bethlehem. We must go to Bethlehem. I remember it well, the line that Jimmy said, what does the Jewish book talk about this king to be born? And the priest, Lewis Maynard, Matthew's daddy, he says, in Bethlehem. Bethlehem? What good can come out of Bethlehem? Where is that? Where is that book? Where is that prophecy? I don't know. Well, go find it. I can still see. Go find that holy book. I want to read that thing. They bring it into him. Here he opens it up. And thou, Bethlehem Ephratah, out of thee shall he be born. In the land of Judah, you're the least among the princes. You're the littlest one of the littlest. Yet out of thee shall a governor come that shall rule my people Israel. And Herod sent the wise men to Bethlehem and said, you go find him, and when you get him, you come back and tell me where he's at so I can come. I can come and worship him too. Yeah, fish on you. Bring me word again that I may come and worship him also. Bethlehem. Herod saw that they went home another way. He was mocked of the wise men, exceeding angry. I bet that's true. The Bible says in other passages, Herod was upset and all of Israel with him. Can you imagine? Imagine when the king, what's that expression, when mama ain't happy? When the king ain't happy. Now, this killing of all the boy babies in Bethlehem How many boy babies would you think in a city about the size of Frog Pond would be born in a 2-year period of time?
10.
Not many. 10? Not many. So there's not that many. I've always imagined they're just going through killing babies every which way. No, they're just looking for that one. They're finding, why kill all the boy babies? 2 years, because that's when the star appeared. That's when they left. It took them 2 years to get to there. So Jesus is 2 years old about this time. So they've got it into a certain age. I want the boy babies 2 years old and young to die. Why? Get that king. Get that king. That's what you do. I get the king or the king gets me. If I don't get him, he'll get me. And so my income depends on the outcome here. So he says he sends them out there. 2 years old and older and under, according to the time when he diligently occurred of the wise men. When did the star appear? It's about 2 years. We've been on the road about 2 years to get here. So they go from Bethlehem. Joseph went up out of Galilee to the city of Nazareth, to Judea, to the city of David, called Bethlehem. Why? Because he's of the line and the lineage of David. Why is that important? Remember the children of Israel. You got to be in that family, the children of Israel. You got to be in a specific family in the children of Israel, the tribe of Judah. You got to be in that one family if you're going to be in the royal family. Now everybody knows me. You know I don't have an awful lot of love about the royal family over in England. That bunch is not acting like anything I know of royalty at all. But I reckon you got to drink with your little finger stuck in the air and wave when you come by and all that stuff. I don't understand all that stuff, I know. But I do know this. I know that this Joseph is of the right family. And Mary is of the right family. And Joseph's lineage is in the city of David. David, King David, the most revered person, shall we say, in Israel today. Even more so than Jesus, because he's revered by the Christians. But you got to understand, Jewish people, he was of the line and the lineage of David. When the angels were gone away, the shepherds, hey, what in the world is that? Let's go to Bethlehem. Now they look right over there, and there it is. I've got a picture of it. Let's just go on. Here's a picture of Bethlehem today. That's not a good picture. I'm sorry, but that's when you blow it up this big. The church, right here, huge, massive structure. Now let's see. See that steeple right there? See that steeple right there? There's a steeple over here somewhere. Different denominations. There's all kinds of different denominations involved in that church. Mm-hmm. Let's look at another. See it right there? That's an Arab minaret. This may be Lutheran or Episcopalian or different kinds. There are all kinds of different faiths involved in that church. It's a huge structure inside. Now we're in the city of Bethlehem now, okay? This is what it looks like today. And we'll wrap it up with this. This is the Church of the Nativity. Let's see now. I was in Wartburg 87 to about the year 1990. Jordan, you may have checked this out. About the year 1990, Yasser Arafat and the PLO took over. They conquered the Church of the Nativity at Christmas time. Wouldn't let any Christians come in there. Wouldn't let you come into the Church of the Nativity. They trashed the place. They shot it full of bullet holes. They destroyed things in the church, the churches. There are different churches in that structure. And they just generally made a mess out of it. Just because they could. Just because they are, the land, the West Bank is theirs, as they say. And the Christians were kept out for a long time. They left sandwiches and cans and trash and garbage and stuff in the floors. It was just awful what they did in there for a long period, over a year that they captured that city. Then they finally went in there and got them. But that's where they were working with, right here in the city of Bethlehem. Now quickly, please. This is the shepherd's field. See the cave? Probably that's the cave that they would have used. Not that particular one, but a cave like that, where they would go in and protect themselves. The shepherds would go in the cold weather, if in fact it was Christmas time, December, which I don't believe it was, but whatever time of the year it was, if it's cold out there, raining and so forth, the sheep are out there keeping, and the shepherds are, and that's a shepherd's field, and it's near Bethlehem, the little town of Bethlehem. Something a lot of people don't realize, King Herod's buried there. That's King Herod's tomb. King Herod died 4 BC. Probably about the time that Jesus, the wise men are talking to him. In that period of time. He's built this thing. It's kind of a pyramid structure, a round conical pyramid structure. He's was buried down in that thing, down in well, I've got another picture of what it probably looked like, in Bethlehem.
That's awful big for one person.
Yeah, it sure is. Wouldn't it be nice to have a mausoleum that big? I heard about a guy one time from Texas that died, and they buried him in his Cadillac. Somebody said, man, that's living. You'll get that about midnight tonight. Herod buried in Bethlehem. He built this. He was building it while all this was going on. Probably, ironically, at or near the same time he ordered the boy babies to be killed, Herod died. Buried in Bethlehem. This is probably what it looked like. On the top of it, on the top part up there, this little structure on the top and the road going around it is called the Herodium. The Herodium. It's in Bethlehem. You can see it today. It's still there. This is the Church of the Nativity. Now I want to call your attention to the plaza or the palisade, all this area here. See that right there? What is that? A little door? It's a huge structure, but that's the door to go into it through the miracles of photography. See that guy sitting in there? He's stooping over. When you want to go into the Church of the Nativity, you have to almost kneel. It's called the eye of the needle. The Bible speaks about a rich man getting into heaven. A camel could go through the eye of a needle before a rich man could go into heaven. That's the eye of the needle. To go in that, you've just about got to kneel. Today, you should have seen our group trying to kneel down and getting in. You should have seen me kneeling down. I went down to get, yes, sir, I want to get inside. So my clock says it's time to stop.
Did it stink inside?
Did it ever? Yeah, it does now. In those days, it probably wasn't all that bad. It's a church. There's several churches. There are all kind of churches in there. But when you're looking for, is you're going down underneath to what's called the grotto, 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 and you're looking for that right there. That is purported to be the spot. Now, who knows? Who knows? I don't know. Who knows if that's the spot where Jesus was born? Who knows? But that is what you're in that presence. Notice all those icons, all those things around. They've beautified it up. They put marble and put this big silver star and look down in there and you can see the manger and all. The manger was, describe the manger for me.
It's a feeding trough.
Yeah. Made out of what? just a flat stone, just a rock. We do it. We put the nice little thing, little cross legs and the hay, and there wasn't anything pretty about it at all. They just laid him on a feeding trough, wrapped him in a burial shroud, and laid Jesus on a feeding trough. There wasn't anything pretty about the birth of Jesus at all, except for the fact that it was Jesus.
Do you think that really God has left it there to let people know that that's where Jesus
I would say he's probably helped to direct people to that way, just the same way he's protected the Bible. I would say he probably has. Some tourists want to chip away at those holy sites. Why would they do that? If I brought a stone from the manger of Jesus, and by the way, the place where they came, the inn, was just a big house. And this is just a cave out the back where the animals are kept, where the sheep and the camels and the donkeys and the stuff are kept back there in the back. It's not a Holiday Inn. This is just an oversized house. The inn, it was called the inn, and there was no room in the inn, so they just went out to the back where the animals were. They went into the barn. They went into the barn where the cows were and all the manure and all that stuff, and that's where our Savior was born. Whether that's the right place or not, I don't know. You can't get that close to it now anyhow, so. I'm sorry? He was born like one of us, as one of us. He was not born in a palace. He was born just like one of us. He is very God, very man. He always has been, and is today. Any other thoughts or comments? Yeah. We had a revival at Wartburg, and we used the barn, the cattle barn, at the fairgrounds. And I thought that's kind of neat. We had a revival in a cattle barn, and several guys were saved in a cattle barn. And I thought, man, that's getting real close to the original there. Saved in a cattle barn.
You were saved that same way.
I'm sorry?
You were saved that same way.
In a tent, yeah. Any other thoughts or comments? Bethlehem. It's a tourist trap now.
Did you have a feeling when you were there, a certain in your gut?
I'll have to say I did not. And I think the reason why, Jordan, you might want to jump in on this, is because it was so noisy. The Garden Tomb is a reverent place operated by the British Bible Society, and it's one of those places that you're hushed all the time, except for that beautiful female voice singing "Because He Lives." The Church of the Agony, the Rock of the Agony, in the church there in the Garden of the Gethsemane, it's a church, and everybody's just sitting there. And when I went up to touch that rock, I was up there by myself. This is the clamor, and it's just not it's like being over in the gym, as opposed to being in the auditorium. It really didn't. It really didn't. But after all, was anybody here tonight? Was anybody here saved in this building? Where were you saved? Whereabouts? The pulpit probably sat 10 feet up. The pulpit was probably right here, the altar. So where would you have been saved? Is this place any holier? You see what I'm saying? It is only a holy place because of what happened there to him. And the fact that somebody else had their hand up. Where were you saved, Steve? First row. On that side? Third row. Okay. on that side over there. So that's a holy place too, over here, see, to him. Anybody else? Frankie? Where the chair's at? Now, you said probably. We don't know exactly where, do we? Exactly. But it's real to them. Okay?
I was in several churches in Italy, huge old
Yeah.
cathedrals that were painted ceilings by
Oh, yeah.
But I went inside of them, and I had one of them. I had real kind of goosebumps all over me.
Good goosebumps or bad goosebumps?
But I don't know why it just had a holy feeling to me.
A holy feeling, a good feeling. Could very well be. God's Holy Spirit is everywhere, isn't he? He's everywhere. He's there too. Steve was saved over here, but what about this guy right here? See? So he's everywhere. Any other thoughts or comments? Okay, so I don't know if that's where Jesus was born. I don't know if that's when he was born. December 25th? Who knows? What do you think it is? September? October-ish? What do you think?
Late September-ish. I heard it was in the summer. According to the
Shepherds don't watch their flocks by night in the cold of the winter. The lambs come at or near Passover, March, April. That's when the lambs basically come. By this time, they are strong enough that they can be on their own. By December, they're out there on their own. Shepherds don't have to be out there. But it works. It works for me. I'll go along. Matthew, let's just keep December 25th. What do you think? I like it. Because let's keep Sunday too. Okay. Anything else? Bethlehem. Beit Lahaim. May you always have bread. Any other thoughts? Yes, he is. And it's amazing that you leave the house of bread to go find bread. That's amazing to me. I like to think when Elimelech came back, Elimelech, my God is king, Elimelech, my God is king. When they came back to Beit Lahaim after having a 10-year sojourn down in Moab, I'd like to think God says, I told you. I told you. You didn't have to go away. When Jesus is feeding the 5,000, he says, what do you got? Well, we got a couple of sandwiches over here. This kid, well, that's all you need. Bring them here. They don't have to go anywhere else. Bring them to Jesus. They don't have to run to anything else in this world. They don't have to go to anywhere else in this world. We have the answer. We have the answer right here. They don't need to go anywhere else in this world to find the answer that there is, that we all know. We all got it. We've got it right here, right? Yeah, we got it. Any thoughts or comments? Anything? Joyce, lead us in prayer, please. That's right.
Yeah. And Father, I just thank you for the salvation that you graciously bestowed on me, God.
Yes. Yes.
I just pray, God, that you'll let us go home safely. Help us to remember, Lord, that you are in control. Help us to be a light out there to the dark world, Father. These things I ask in Jesus' name, amen.
Amen. God bless you, folks. The Wild Man be here Sunday morning. If you've never heard R.V. Maynard, you ought to be here.